Hello, everyone. Today we're taking a look at another type of argumentative writing strategy known as the Toulmin method that you can use when you write your argumentative research papers, or basically any type of argument. Okay. So the first thing is let's take a kind of scenario approach to this at first. So it's right around test time, and teaching high school for 30 years, as I did in my previous career, I heard a lot of these comments. I didn't have a chance to study. We never learned this material. I studied so hard. Why did I get a bad grade? Okay? So here's what I would want you to think of. Why do students make those types of statements? And what results are they trying to achieve by making those statements? Okay? So if we take a deeper look at this, a student might say, I didn't have a chance to study, or we never learned this material, but I studied so hard. What they really mean is, well, maybe I shouldn't have to take the test, or I shouldn't have to complete these problems, or maybe I should get a higher grade. Okay? So behind each of those statements on what the student say column is an implied argument that they're trying to make. Okay? So here we come to what is the argument exactly? So this is where you have to find what the argument is. If your mom says you left your dirty clothes on the floor, what's she really trying to say? You need to pick them up. If a child screams out, Mom, James is using my toy, what is he really trying to say here? Make him give it back. If a teenager says, the new Star Wars movie's coming out tonight, I need to go, everybody else is going, what they really mean is, hey, we need to go see it. Okay, so this is kind of like where you're looking at, this is the implied argument that someone is making, not coming right out and saying the statement that we need to do these things. They're implying that you need to do those things. Okay? So, if we take a look at these two ads, because visual rhetoric, visual arguments are what we see a lot of in ads and on social media. We have an ad here from Levi's that says, this country was not built by men in suits. So what's the real argument? What they're trying to say is this country was built on the backs of people who were hardworking and not people who lived in offices and didn't do anything that was like considered hard labor. Okay? In the Coke ad, when they say it's the real thing, Coke, what they're really saying is well, Coca-Cola is the best there is out there. It's real. You should be drinking Coca-Cola instead of Pepsi or any other type of product. Okay, again, with visual rhetoric, we have to look for the argument. It's implied. It doesn't come right out and state it to us. If someone says, cool story, bro, what they're really saying is like, yeah, that's cool. Okay, fine. And in the second ad, we can see here, we have everybody dressed in suits and ties, but you have this one guy at the end in very casual wear, his Hawaiian shirt, his khaki cargo pants. He's standing out from the crowd. He's basically saying, you don't have to follow the norm. You can be your own person. So when you make an argument, you really need to look at the facts, the data, the research, what's out there, and then you make an assertion based on the data. And sometimes we call that our thesis. And this is what equals your argument. Okay, so we have an evidence, we have a claim, also known as a thesis, and then we have our argument. Okay, now can you see these categories in the student excuses from the previous slide? So evidence, if a student says, I didn't have a chance to study, or we never learned this material, or I studied so hard, why did I get such a bad grade? What the claim is I shouldn't have to take the test. But again, like I said earlier, this is implied. It is not directly stated. Okay? And we see this a lot. in arguments where people don't come right out and say what the claim is, they imply what the claim is. It's up to you as a reader to figure out what they're trying to say. Okay, so when we look at evidence and claim, we're looking at what we call causal language. It's where we have that because of this, then we do this type of language. Okay, so it's again, if you look back at organizational patterns from English 101, what you're really looking at is cause and effect type writing. Okay, and these are just some more examples of what that looks like. Okay, you can also reverse these. You can say, we can conclude da 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 because of da 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 da. So again, that's up to your writing voice, your style, what best works for you as a writer. Okay, so you can see on each of these, we are making sure that we have an evidence and a claim so that we have a valid argument. Okay, now let's take a look at what we call warrants. Okay, so evidence and claim are the two things that are very important when you do your argument, but something as simple as a t-shirt can be an argument. Okay, when you saw the one that said "Cool Story, Bro," or like here in the background with this owl going seriously. Okay, so when we take a look at these, we're going to look at how that relationship works together and why we assume the cause leads to the effect. Okay, so if you have a clearly stated argument, you have to identify the evidence claim, but a well-supported argument will identify the reason why the evidence supports the claim. Okay, and this is where the warrant comes in, the reason why the data results in that assertion, that claim that you're making. Okay, so if you said to someone, here's the evidence, since you have a high fever, or because the tickets are so expensive, or the stove is hot, you can see how those claims figure into that. If you got a high fever, see a doctor. If the tickets are so expensive, maybe we should wait until they're on discount or on sale before we buy them. Or if the stove is hot, maybe you shouldn't touch it. Okay, so the warrant here on the first example is that a high fever is serious enough a condition to require the help of a medical professional. On the second one, the warrant is the tickets are not worth the original price. And on the last one, the warrant is it's not good to subject yourself to undue pain, so don't touch the stove. Okay, now here's how we put arguments to use. Okay, so we looked at evidence and claim, and we've looked at warrant. Okay, we've looked at them in the examples from the student excuses and from other examples. Okay, now we're going to look at how to construct these answers into writing prompts, like how do you make this into a valid argument writing prompt. Okay, so here's an example. Should what you say on Facebook be grounds for suspension or expulsion? So here's the claim. No, what you say on Facebook should not be grounds for suspension or expulsion. And here's the evidence, because Facebook is not a part of school grounds or an extension of school activities. Okay, the warrant, however, is that a school has the authority to issue consequences only for offenses related to its grounds or activities. How would you feel about a computer grading your essays? Well, the claim is maybe some people would welcome computer grading. Some people look at it as maybe I'll get my grades faster. The evidence is because computers are impartial and will grade fairly, regardless of the student's behavior or reputation. The warrant might be that teachers grade with the student in mind rather than the assignment in mind. Does class size matter? Well, the claim is yes, class size does matter. The evidence is because in large classes, certain members of the class can be overlooked and may not get the necessary attention or help that they need. So the warrant might be something like individualized attention creates a favorable learning environment, which means class size matters because you have smaller numbers of students in class. So you can definitely go around and talk to each individual student more than you would if you had a class of, let's say, 35 versus 20. Okay? So this is something I want you to think about for a Toulmin argument is what would you make for each one of these statements? What would your argument be for each one? What would your claim be, your evidence, and your warrant? Okay, so again, this is just one way to think about argumentative writing. It's the Toulmin argument writing strategy. And again, you need to pick the one that works best for your type of writing. You know, how it works best for you and how it works best for your topic.